welcome to the second session of Pub Theology. I was going to say Theology on Tap, that's the Catholic version. So Pub Theology. Tonight's topic is What a Wonderful World, how our faith traditions look at ecology and nature in general and how we're supposed to take care of creation. Our panelists right now are Reverend Jon Elsensohn from the First Baptist Church, Reverend Olson from First Presbyterian, and Reverend Wil Wilson from First Methodist. All the first, right? And then I'm
We're number one. We're number one.
And I'm Schlameuss-Perry, Pastoral Associate of St. Robert's in the township. We will have another Catholic rep. Monsignor is going to be here when he can. Father Arian got called to the hospital in an emergency, so both of our priests are down for the count right now, but they are coming. So to get us kicked off, Jon is going to start us with a prayer from St. Francis.
Yes. All right. This prayer is attributed to St. Francis. It's the Canticle of Creation. So I ask that you all join me in prayer. O Most High, all-powerful and good Lord God, to you belong praise, glory, honor, and blessing. Be praised, my Lord, for all your creation, and especially for our brother Sun, who brings us the day and the light. He is strong and shines magnificently. O Lord, we think of you when we look at him. Be praised, my Lord, for Sister Moon and the stars, which you have set shining and lovely in the heavens. Be praised, my Lord, for brothers wind and air and every kind of weather, by which you, Lord, uphold life in all your creatures. Be praised, my Lord, for Sister Water, who is very useful to us, and humble and precious and pure. Be praised, my Lord, for Brother Fire, through whom you give us light in the darkness. He is bright and lively and strong. Be praised, my Lord, for Sister Earth, our Mother, who nourishes us and sustains us, bringing forth fruit and vegetables of many kinds and flowers of many colors. Be praised, my Lord, for those who forgive for love of you, and for those who bear sickness and weakness and patience and peace. You will grant them a crown. Be praised, my Lord, for our sister death, whom we all must face. I praise and bless you, Lord, and I give thanks to you, and I will serve you in all humility. Amen.
Okay. And while most of you have been here before, I see a couple of new faces, so I'm just going to let you know how this goes. We begin with a series of moderating questions that are predetermined, and I'm going to moderate and Christy tell us, and they're going to share from their faith tradition what their faith teaches. So, for many of you, what your faith teaches. After that, we're going to take a little intermission, and there are pieces of paper and pens on your table. So, if you have any questions at any point, if they occur to you, jot them down. And during the intermission, I'll be coming around to collect those. And the second part will be a question and response period. Okay, so try to make this a nice stumping question. Try to stump these guys. But that's how it's going to go. So we're going to begin with our moderated questions now. And again, Monsignor will be joining us soon, so I might have to answer for the Catholics a little bit. But we'll try to avoid that. Not that I can't. I have an answer. But, better to hear from one voice. Okay, so we'll start with the first question, which is, what does your faith tradition teach about how we should care for creation? Which one of you fellas wants to start?
I can start.
Thank you, Will.
So I brought some show and tell items here today. The Methodists in the room will know what I'm talking about, but maybe not everyone else. So I have here the Book of Discipline. This is the guiding book for our denomination. In here are a number of different things, some of our theological understandings, our historical framework. It also has all the laws that govern how we are set up as a denomination, from denomination-wide level to down to the local church, what committees we have, how clergy work, how bishops work, all that kind of stuff. And also within here, what we call the social principles. And these are principles guided around social issues in our world that are voted on by our general church body, legislative body, that meets every 4 years. And so they address every social concern, including environmental justice and what we'll be talking about this evening. So some of the things I'll be drawing from here. We also have the Book of Resolutions, which actually builds off of those social principles and goes into more in depth. Here you have resolutions, calls to action, different things like that, recommended by the denomination to the local churches, things that we should be doing. And they have resolutions about care of the environment and things like that. Finally, they have this great resource here. This is from our agency, Church and Society, which works on all different social issues. And they actually put together this little pamphlet here that has, if you can name the social issue, it is in this binder right here. It'll tell you what the Bible says, what the Methodist Church says, and then things you can do in efforts to help or to navigate those social issues or things we can do for advocacy on the local level. So it's really cool that they have this, and so I brought that along with me as well. I just wanted to start briefly. One of the taglines, like the 3 simple rules you'd say of Methodism, go as follows. It's do no harm, do all the good you can, and attend to the ordinances of God, which is the sacraments, worship, prayer, things like that. So when it comes to creation care, we're really looking at the do no harm aspect of that. And so in these books, it's really a call to be mindful of the impact that we have, our actions have on the environment around us. And so actually within here, there is a resolution for things that we can do as a church to help do less harm to our environment. One is to designate a special Sunday each year around Earth Day. That is, it's the festival of God's creation, to focus on these issues and call attention that creation comes from God, that we are to tend to it and take care of it, to promote or to be mindful of our consumption, that we're not consuming too much, that we're not wasting too much. Also a call to action to make sure that we recycle, pay attention to the things that we use, that we reuse what we can, and be mindful of the products that we use that could be harmful to the environment. And also to encourage us to perform energy audits to check our energy efficiency and pursue renewable resources when possible. So, there's huge theological statements here that I could read and bore you with, but we'll be getting into that a little bit. But I wanted to point out, though, that there are actually specific action steps that are promoted within our denomination for things that we can do on a local level. Now, whether a church decides to pursue these or not is up to the local church, but the denomination does try to advocate that we do be mindful of the harm we can cause to the environment and also the steps that we can take to be better stewards of it.
Thank you. Elsie, want to go next?
Sure. So, in the Presbyterian Church USA, we have some similar ways of doing things. Our Constitution is called the Book of Order, and one of the foundational statements in our Book of Order is that God alone is Lord of conscience. So we recognize that people come to all of these questions from many different positions, many different theological understandings, and understandings that come out of personal experience, personal beliefs outside of the church, and that there is not a position that we dictate on any of these things. I had a member in my last congregation who was working on her bachelor's degree at the age of 59, and she was in an ethics course, and she had to write a position paper, and she approached me and said, "What's the Presbyterian Church's position on animal testing?" And I said, I don't know. I'll look that up for you. And so I think a lot of that comes out of this belief that God alone is Lord of conscience. Now, within our General Assembly, we will have working groups that are formed to address any number of issues, and we will have advocacy groups within the denomination, but we don't have blanket stands on many policies like that. It would have to rise to the level of something like apartheid in South Africa, where we feel the need to take a denominational position against it, and where it's clear that there is a uniform consensus that this is something we must take a stand against. So we don't have a denomination-wide policy, but we do have advocacy groups that work off of that principle, and they will, our General Assembly meets every 2 years. They will make overtures to that General Assembly, and sometimes we will adopt resolutions and things. But in terms of a denomination-wide policy statement, we don't have many of those on very specific environmental issues.
There's no uniformity amongst Baptists, so full stop, I'm done. But with that said, at a denominational level of the American Baptist Church, we've made moves to come into better positions of care for the environment, and even going as far as with our retirement funds, which pastors and clergy and workers within the church are provided a pension. Within the pension fund, there are options for investing in retirement in techs and securities and futures and stock and all of that stuff that is more supportive of green technologies and things of that nature. So the concern for the environment exists throughout all strata of Baptist life, while we are somewhat lacking in binding denominational stances on it. But one of the things that is sort of a joy of Baptist life is everyone's individual conscience is affirmed and respected, and therefore we have a plenitude of environmental standards that we need to meet. We draw a lot of our theological base for our thinking of this from the command that we are to go forth and multiply, and also to take dominion over the earth. And while there are many who have taken the phrase to have dominion over the earth very literally and have tried to break it and extract all of its natural resources and many people see it as more of a symbiotic relationship, because American Baptism rose out of an agrarian lifestyle in New England and coastal Virginia. And so these are people who worked intimately with the land that they were given and saw each part of their daily life as a gift from God. So therefore the onus is upon them to continue to respect the gifts of God that they've been given. And so it's in their best interest, both physically and spiritually, to, not be too much of a jerk about the whole thing.
I would add to that, we have various voluntary things that we can sign on to. There is a movement within the Presbyterian Church to become what are called Earth Care congregations, and that they will set voluntary standards of participation in recycling, being conscious of energy use in church buildings, things like that. But this is by no means something that every congregation does.
From the Catholic perspective, I would echo a lot of what my friends here said. We have definite ideas about how the earth should be cared for, and that it is our job to do it. We also have responsible, investing for our retirement funds. We have a lot of different initiatives in the Catholic Church to try to promote the care of creation. But getting into specific topics, Wil was mentioning, we don't always go there. We have more of a general teaching. The Pope recently came out with, I say recently, 2,000 years recently, so a couple of years ago, an encyclical called Laudate Se, and it was all about creation because he saw it as a major issue. And he also mentioned that to harm the environment is a very serious sin, and that it's not anything that doesn't promote a healthy place for creation is sinful. So we were pretty much told, you got to do this, and then Laudate Se came out after that. So I find encyclicals generally difficult to read, kind of boring. Like I'll try to read them and then I fall asleep, and then I try to read them. Even the one on joy, it was lovely, but it made me sleepy. So, but the general, gist of it is that it is our responsibility, and we have no excuse. Our conscience should never ever allow us to do anything that's harmful, and that we should always be looking towards the promotion of it. He's come out recently, also in, again, general terms, kind of criticizing what's going on here as far as the policies that are changing and the way our president talks about, just policies toward the environment in general. He's always kind of throwing in digs. Pope Francis. He took that name on purpose. It meant something to him about rebuilding the church. But I think he also has a connection to creation, as Jesuits often do. So he, he's always kind of like putting it back out there and putting it back out there and putting that back out there so that we're paying attention. But our teachings are pretty general. They're not, like if you don't recycle, you should go to confession. It's not like that. But you probably should. No, I'm just kidding.
Only if you mix your recycling.
Oh yeah, that's a major thing. Don't mix your recycling. Which I do all the time because I can't tell what we're supposed to recycle. Anybody want to add anything before we move on to the next? Good? All right. So the second question is, what does have dominion mean? John referred to it. It's from Genesis 1:28 is the verse. Chapter 1, verse 28. And it's after creation. God is making creation. If you'll indulge me, I'll just read this one little part. This is the New American Bible. Sorry, it's the Catholic version. It's the one that I just have handy. In verse 25, God made every kind of wild animal and every kind of tame animal and every kind of thing that crawls on the ground. God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the tame animals, all the wild animals, and all the creatures that crawl on the earth." God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fertile and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and all the living things that crawl on the ground, on the earth." Okay, so that's he mentions have dominion twice in that section. So what does have dominion in this context and just in general? How does God, I'm not going to read the question. What does dominion mean?
We'll often talk about dominion, but talk about it in terms of stewardship. That God has given us, these things for us to use, this world for us to live in, but we're called to be steward. There's a responsibility in that. Yes, we have dominion in that we have power over a lot of what is around us, but it is still God's. It still belongs to God. We have been kind of appointed as caretakers for the creation that is around us. So while we can say we have dominion over the earth in that way, it's more in a responsible type of way, that it's not ours, but it's our responsibility to take care of it, to use what God has given us, to take care of ourselves, take care of our communities, but always be mindful that it's not ours, it's God's. We hear that a lot when we talk about money, we talk about stewardship. We have been given these things. We're supposed to give that back to God and back to ministry, but it's also the same in what God has blessed us with our natural resources, with the things around us. We are being mindful of how we use them and make sure that we're doing it in a way that gives glory to God and is blessed by God.
So I don't have any differences with anything that Will just said. I think that's pretty standard for us too. I would also add to that inherent in the command to be fruitful and multiply, dominion requires that we don't do things that prevent other people from being fruitful and multiplying too. And while that might not have been as great an issue 2,000 years ago, we have patterns of consumption and usage that do, in fact, limit other people's abilities to be fruitful and multiply. And dominion includes responsibility, stewardship, and being aware that we need to allow other people to be fruitful as well, and working to protect that rather than to let our own desires limit the fruitfulness of others.
Fruitfulness is actually a theme that runs throughout the Bible, but specifically the prophetic tradition. There's a lot of references to what it means to be fruitful, and also what it means to be a good steward of the land that you are provided. And oftentimes, as so many parables are, there's a literal reading and then there's the analogical reading, and they run in parallel. So when Isaiah tells us about vineyard owners who are upset with the fruitfulness of their harvest, sure, there's a direct real parallel, and then sure, there's also a direct analogy being made to God's understanding of how the people of Israel are working out the whole covenant thing. But in all of the verses that I can think of that reference fruitfulness, it's always in relationship to an overseer of some sort. Sometimes in a parable that's a stand-in for God, sometimes that's a stand-in for our own action. But nothing happens by accident. People are upset with fig trees that aren't producing, and so the good gardener says that he will dig around the roots and spread manure and give it another year and see what happens. There are other ones that are a little bit harsher, where they think that this tree can produce no good, and so they cut it down and cast it into the fire. So this notion of dominion, as it is modeled for us in the Bible, is one of relationship, where we're using the best of our gifts and the best of our wisdom to produce the most that we can with what we have been given. And so my understanding of dominion has always been something in those lines, where we are doing the best with what we've got and trying to make the best choices that we can.
Again, in agreement with these fellas, but to add just a slightly different layer to it. In that reading in particular, God makes everything, then he makes us, the highest part of creation, the crown jewels or whatever, and says to us that we're made in his image and likeness, and as a result of that need to take care of everything. So when God says have dominion, he's not just saying, like these fellas said, go, have at it however you want. We're meant to understand that the way that God would take care of it is the way that we should take care of it. We are his mirror image here. We're his echo on the planet. And so if we're being put in charge as his image and likeness here, then what we do should absolutely echo what God would do. We have to take care of it exactly the way that God would, love it the way that God would, appreciate it for what it is, the way that God would, and then treat it that way. So Father Arian just walked in.
Hi.
Join us. Grab a stool. Come on over.
Okay, let me see. Thank you.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I would add to that. I'm glad that John brought the prophets into this, because very often the prophets are holding the feet of the leaders to the fire, saying, take care of the widow, take care of the orphan. So dominion includes taking care of the widow and the orphan and the poor and the foreigner who lives among you. And that caretaking is not just economic, but it is caring for the land that supports all of those people, the air, the water, the resources that they all depend on. So that it's really important to consider that prophetic tradition too.
I have one more piece to add to that, which is that creation is intimately tied to the human story within the biblical narrative as well. This Sunday, most Christian churches are going to be celebrating Pentecost. And in the Pentecost story, when the tongues of fire descend on the apostles and they speak in tongues, when Peter gives a defense, when people have said, oh, these guys are just drunk, his defense is to quote the prophet Joel, who talks about what will happen on the day of the Lord. And there will be old men who will prophesy and young men will dream dreams. And then he gives a vision of the world on the day of the Lord, when the sky will go black at midday, the moon will turn to blood, all of these things. And so much of the apocalyptic imagery we have of the biblical and prophetic traditions is of the world physically changed. The rivers run backwards. Think of the 10 plagues in Egypt. It is the environment itself rising against humanity. And so we see the environment as an actor or a partner in the human story, based on the very ways that we speak about God, we speak about the world as well.
And just to piggyback on that, a lot of times when something significant happens, the earth kind of reacts along with whatever's happening. Like in the crucifixion of Jesus, when he dies, what happens? There's an earthquake, everything goes dark. So nature kind of responds to God in a way that is extremely profound. And I think, again, kind of shares that relationship that we have. It's not just us, it's creation too. And creation is just as tied to God as we are.
When I arrived, I heard that you said that we believe as Christians that we are like the top of creation, that after us, there is just the angels.
Yeah, a little lower than angels,
yeah,
right?
a little lower than angels. But the other day I was listening to a guru from India. You know, they are really connected with nature and they have a different perspective. I know that we are in a Christian setting right now. I was listening to that. What he said is that sometimes we as human beings, we are full of greed and arrogance in front of the nature. We believe that we are the top of everything. And we diminish the role of some creatures on earth like insects. But he says without insects, we are not able to survive, honestly, scientifically and chemically. If we disappear from Earth as a human beings, as a race, the Earth will grow up. Nature exists, but we don't. You know, so the importance of sometimes we think that we are the lords of the Earth, but with our existence, the Earth will exist, and nature will grow up. Trees, animals, everything is going to be perfect without us, within us. So we think that sometimes we are the lords of the Earth from the Christian perspective.
That reminds me very much of the Godzilla movie. Did
Yeah.
anyone see Godzilla? I think that's what we were talking about earlier today. We couldn't quite get there. But yeah, that, you know, Godzilla's awesome, obviously. But that sense of how humanity is kind of, you know, using the earth and abusing it instead of caring for it, that stewardship that Alan was talking about, and how sometimes nature, and well, it's okay, but you use the word stewardship, I think. Anyway, maybe it's too, I'm sorry if you didn't. But the point of the movie, again, well, there were a few points, but one of them was that humans were kind of ruining the earth, and it kind of took nature, a giant monster, several giant monsters, 8 of them, even though they said 17 and counting in the movie, in the commercials, whatever. But only 8 of them, kind of trying to take the world back and fix it because we broke it. So that was a side trip, sorry. Anybody want to add anything that's not Godzilla?
I guess I would just say that creation care, and I guess we're talking about dominion, it's intertwined with that love of neighbor. Because what we do to the environment impacts the people who live in creation on this world. I think about, for instance, I grew up outside of Camden, New Jersey, one of the poorest cities in the country. Where did they build the incinerator for the garbage? In Camden, New Jersey. The county officials decided that was the place to put it, so all the wealthy suburbs would send their trash to Camden. That's where it's disposed of. It stinks in that city. It's a horrible environment. It's doing nothing to do anything to revitalize that. And so we see how we can take advantage of others, including their environment, because of our greed or because of our not wanting to deal with that, but let someone else deal with that. And so we see those consequences affecting others, or even parts of our world that aren't necessarily the ones that are over-consuming and causing issues, are the ones that are dealing with famines and droughts and environmental consequences of actions taken by more wealthy nations. And so we see a give and take there. When we get too greedy in one sense, when we overconsume in one sense, we're hurting other people. And it's easy for us to turn a blind eye to it. But like those prophetic voices in the Bible, just like Jesus is telling us, whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. Whatever you did to the least of these, you're doing to me. And that's something we always have to be mindful of.
Pretty good. All right. So the next question, what is your understanding of creation? What is creation? What is encapsulated in that word?
According to denominational standards here, creation is everything, even space. We even have a couple paragraphs on space.
Final frontier?
Yeah, I think so.
Can we build a space incinerator?
I think they talked
Take the
about
pressure off the
it.
It may mention Death Stars. But But I mean, creation is it's everything. God created the whole universe, and so it's not just this planet we call Earth, but it's everything. I mean, now we have pollution in space as well to take into account. Of course, as far as that dominion thing, maybe trying to see what we can find out in space too is kind of part of that, and trying to figure out and learn about all of creation, learn about this universe. But for me, it goes beyond, I think, whatever we can even imagine in our minds.
For me, creation is like more than we think that God creates the world in 7 days, day 1, day 2, day 3. So for me, creation is like God is the source of life, and we tend to go to the source of life. So everything is attention to be fulfilled in God. That's for me the concept of creation.
I would add to that God is the creator of love, that love is created by God, and that creation is something that is part of God's love for us, and we are commanded to respond in love for God and love for neighbor, and that has to govern our relationship with creation. That we have to reflect God's love for neighbor in our relationship with all of God's creation.
Since I don't disagree with any of the things that have been said, I'll offer another perspective. In the Islamic understanding of creation, rather than the narrative of the 7 days creation, I may need to narrow this. Please don't quote me on this. I believe it might actually be a Sufi understanding, not a broadly Muslim one. They believe that everything existed in what we would call the mind of God, and God's command was to be, and the universe sprang forth from that. And so therefore there's an innate relationship between all things and their creator. And that means good things and bad things. That means the deer and the wild roses and everything that we are blessed with in this lovely summer that we are coming into is fulfilling its command to be. That means humans, when they are doing the best that they know how to do, are fulfilling that command to be. That means mountains are doing the best that they know how to do when they're fulfilling that command to be. That permeates all of creation. And from a Christian perspective, when we look at Jesus' resurrection, when we look at the promise of a world that is made new, when we look at the promise of our own lives made new, that extends to all of creation. That we are not the only things that are made new. Our understanding of this world is as well. So creation is both the things that we physically touch, but again, a relationship that binds us all together. You're not going to tweet that, right?
No. There's too many characters. I don't have otherwise. Totally. I'm like writing down all of your wisdom.
Well, you should.
No, I was looking for the scripture quote where it says that death is the only thing that God didn't create. And I can't find it quickly. So it's fine. Okay. What is our
So we're a mental construct in the mind of God. That's how we're created. We're a mental construct in the mind of God.
In a Sufi understanding,
Yeah.
yes. But brought forth from that we do not exist
Give us physical, gives them the physical appearance.
But not just us, everything.
Everything.
But I think also there is we know that there is a connection between that, between the redemption of Jesus Christ, also the cosmos, the world, and nature is expecting also that new creation that also we will experience the future. Go, is that the same?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What is our responsibility to the present world, believing in a perfect world that is yet to come? So we talk about the in the book of Revelation that there will be a new creation, a new heaven and a new earth. So with that in mind, does that negate our responsibility to the world here, since God's just going to fix it all in the end anyway? Or what is our responsibility in the context of that new creation?
And that's actually, I find that a very interesting question, because many of you are familiar with the book series Left Behind. In that series, that describes a particular understanding of the Christian eschaton, of that is what to come. But strongly fundamentalist groups that hold to that view of the world unfolding the way it does believe that we bear no responsibility for the world around us because the world would be made new. So it's a bit like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic in that world. That it's all going to get changed, we're all going to be changed, and therefore it doesn't matter if we drain our car's oil into the storm drains when it's time to change our engine oil. For me, that doesn't hold any merit whatsoever, because there's no relationship between that worldview and anything else that we see in the Bible or the teachings of the early church. Because, as I've been speaking in my parts tonight, I've been trying to identify this notion of relationship between humans and creation, between humans and one another, between God and all of us. I think that relationship permeates even more. So therefore, our responsibility to the present world is to fulfill that relationship, rather than just saying, nah, God's going to clean this up afterwards.
Yeah, and I would root some of that too in the Gospel of John, everybody's favorite verse quoted out of context, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. That's the whole world. That's all of creation. That's everyone, faithful and unfaithful alike. God loves it all. So if everyone is our neighbor, and the short answer is yes, everyone is our neighbor. That's another soapbox. But if everyone is our neighbor and God loves everyone, we also have to love as God loves. We will never do that perfectly. We will never do that as well as God does. But we are constantly called to repent of our own self-interest, our own greed, our own desire, and remember that everyone else is part of God's beloved creation, and act in accordance with that understanding.
In the Wesleyan Methodist view, we go back to John Wesley, the Anglican priest who began the Methodist movement. Though he was never Methodist himself, the Methodist Church was born through the movement. He was born within his own church. But in his theology, it was a holistic view of salvation, that it's not just that we're trying to redeem ourselves, but it's redemption of all creation into a new heaven and a new earth. And here it talks about that, one day in one of his sermons actually titled The New Creation, he talks about an end of present environmental catastrophes like storms, polluted water, and animal suffering, that this is all part of the promise of God's greater deliverance from sin. And to crown all, there will be a deep and intimate and uninterrupted union with God, a constant communion with the Father and his Son, Jesus Christ, through the Spirit, a continual enjoyment of the three, one God, and of all the creatures in him. Then it goes on to say that early Methodists actually worked towards this hoped-for view of addressing environmental concerns such as open sewers, impure water, unplanned cities, and smoke-filled air. And so there's been a history of advocacy work done by Methodists and other faith traditions as well, in this spirit of, okay, this is God's creation, God is working to redeem it, and we're part of that work. And we're called to be those voices, those advocates for God's creation. And we still need those voices today in advocating for care for creation And understanding that God's not just going to destroy this world and start from scratch, but that God is actually, the power of God and salvation is that it can redeem what is broken and make it perfect and make it well. And so that's, just like with our own selves, and we make our mistakes, we have our issues, God can still redeem us, God can still redeem this world.
And for those of you who aren't Methodists, don't think that Wesley is a hippie from California. This is 250 years ago. So he is seeing people suffering from plagues because the factories are just dumping everything into the Thames River in London. This stuff keeps happening because I own something and it's cheaper for me to dump my pollution in an open sewer rather than treat that and diminish my profits.
And I think that is connected with our salvation to war for the protection of creation and the environment. At the same way, we take advantage in a good way of the benefits of redemption that Jesus Christ brought to humankind. So I think that also we need to work together with creation that take part also of those benefits that the salvation that Jesus Christ brought to the cosmos, to the universe. So I think that we need to work towards that as well.
So to come back to everybody's favorite verse taken out of context, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. He gave his only son so that we might all be saved. It's not just saved from, it's saved for. It is saved for bringing everyone else into this love, caring for everyone else. And that's all a part of caring for God's creation.
And we have one final question. It's kind of a fun one. And then we'll take our break. Do animals have souls? And it's a combo question. Do all dogs go to heaven?
Are you a good boy?
They're good girls.
Well, I have 3 cats, and I'll practice my sermons at home, and they'll hear me talking, and a couple will come and listen or see what I'm doing, but I don't think it's really sinking in, so I don't know how I hear for them.
Don't cut them out. I'll get them to understand.
They're just like, play with me, pet me, and feed me. What are you doing? Just standing, staring at the wall, talking.
You stare at the wall when you practice?
Well, I have to put my stuff somewhere where because they like to sit on the manuscript, so I have to put it up high where they can't get to it.
I'm agnostic on this question.
Good question. No, I think I was thinking on my way here. There is a term that we use in our religion. It's a spirit. Sometimes we think that the spirit is something external that came up from heaven, but the original term of a spirit is a Greek word that means pneuma. It means breathe, life. Everything that is, everything that has movement. So I don't know if they go to heaven, but they are alive.
I mean, you can't equate a cat or a dog with an elephant or a high speed at the high level of mammals at sea that have shown remarkable perceptions and behaviors.
Well, cats are brilliant.
Manipulated us for sure.
That's right. No, listen,
Just waiting for the internet to
It's not the same category of animal.
You see, but Thomas Aquinas really loved this ranking, the great chain of being. And he was really confused by oysters because he didn't know where to put them in the thing, because they're pretty much rocks, but they do have some lifelike characteristics. And he tied that understanding of the great chain of being to his understanding of the relationships of the choirs of angels and the spheres and the powers and all of these celestial things. And that's great. It makes for interesting theology. He's a dense writer who will be tormenting people for years and years and years to come. I tend to fall more on his near contemporary Francis's side of things, who wrote, "If you have men who will exclude any of God's creatures from the shelter of compassion and pity, You will have men who deal likewise with their fellow men. And I'm not qualified to say if animals have souls or how important they are or not, but it doesn't really matter to me in my day-to-day life. Don't kick dogs and, pet your cat.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
All right, so the souls part, probably not. The church teaches no, they don't have souls. But we do also teach that all creation that issues forth from God goes back to God. So if it's going back to God, it's part of God's imagination, part of the creation that God made. It still belongs to Him. If you want to think of it in scientific terms, matter cannot, it doesn't get destroyed, it just gets reused and energy. It goes back. It comes back to God ultimately. And I would just also point out that after God made Adam, and I know we don't take the story literally, and believe me, I don't, but I think it's very interesting that the next thing that God made when He saw that Adam was bored was what? Animals, not Eve. He was like, I will make him a companion. And He made him all the animals. He's like, look, Adam, look at all the animals. You can name them and pet them, and they can be your buddies. And He's like, oh, okay. It didn't serve the right purpose. He needed Eve ultimately. But first, God was like, here's animals. These are your companions. So I just think that in the order, God made the animals as important as companions, and I don't think that just goes away. So that's. Anybody want to? Did you want to say something?
No, that's great.
I think that it's an important question, but probably what we need to ask is what do we understand by heaven?
Yeah.
It's another also question that we need to ask. What do we think about salvation and being with God for eternity? What do we understand by that? So from that we can answer that question.
Yes.
I think my serious answer would be that, all life is sacred. It's not for us to decide what happens to it when it's dead. Just like we don't, we can't go around making decisions about who we become friends with or not because we're worried about where they're going when they die. But, that we just pay attention that all life is sacred, that we treat all of God's creation as though it is sacred. And, we have these questions, but that at least we live our lives in a way that we're not causing harm, but just acknowledging the sacredness of all creation.
Anybody else want to add anything?
What she said.
Okay. All right, so we're going to take our break and be coming around to gather up the questions. Please continue to enjoy your food and drinks, and we'll be back.